course number 4 in the World Championship, Interlaken, from the 5th tee, one of the easier of the courses. I'm going to aim for a backspin. In fact, actually, I changed that here. It's starting to get, with my stats, a little bit tricky to backspin it in. Even a 9-iron, I have to underpower quite a bit. So what you'll see me doing here, which you'll see on a few holes, you can see I'm selecting pitching wedge there, which is about the right distance. However, what I've done is selected a power approach wedge. So it gives you the loft of an approach wedge and the control, and you can hit it about 10 yards further than a standard one. So you'll see that sometimes a power low shot. It won't let you power a sand wedge. So the lowest club you can play is an approach wedge with a power shot, but it's really quite useful to select a power shot, get used to it, how it's going to pitch and how it's going to fly, but you'll get quite a lot of loft. And it's quite easy to stop it as I did there. So a backspin's perfectly viable. Some of you with lower stats, a high shot might be the only option. This one, you can draw it around the mountain, which is what most will be doing. Then all of a sudden, you realise that you've got enough distance to actually make it over the mountain. Excuse me. This is all about getting it high enough to go over, but soft enough not to go over the back and into the bunker or even the water. Again, previous experience helps with a bit of a headwind, which is certainly useful here. I can play a full 5 wood. It's going to just make it over, and for that reason it's going to just catch the front. It's actually just on the fringe. If it crept over the fringe onto the green, there's a chance it might roll over the back there, so I might need to play it at 99%, something like that. But that's a perfect win for me, just to roll it right up within easy eagle distance. So on to the 3rd, which is a par 5. This is a long par 5. By long, I mean you're not going to see any albatrosses here unless someone puts their approach shot in. Possibly from the 1st, maybe 2nd tee, it's possible. Early on, you'll be aiming around here. As your stats increase, you've got to be careful of those bunkers because it rolls off to the left. What I'm doing here is, you'll notice I'm not going full blast. I'm playing a non-power 2 wood. Again, I just know that this is going to leave me within a sand wedge pitch distance. I'll always try and do that where possible. To my mind, the sand wedge pitch is the easiest approach. I know roughly what it's going to do. As long as I'm hitting it within 192-93%, it's always going to stop quite quickly because this green does roll away from us a bit. I think I'll leave it a little bit short here because I have the choice of either playing a full sand wedge, which I think is what I do, or an slightly underpowered approach wedge, which is more likely to roll on a bit, so there's a better chance it could roll past the pin and possibly off the green. So you'll see I'm a bit short. It rolls on a little bit. It's within comfortable putting distance. You also saw I aimed way over to the right there. That was obviously because the ball was going to kick off to the left when I hit it, as we could see by the lie. So an eagle there. Onto the 4th. This is a frustrating one in some ways because the greens, you see a 4 wood is actually, I've got the distance to get it, but this giant mountain in the way ensures I'm not going to play a sky shot. I'm not going to play a fade shot. Even I've tried with a 4-yard right to left wind. I think technically it may be possible. Potentially in the 1-to-1 you sometimes get 5-6 yard winds. It would potentially be possible in that sort of wind, but otherwise it's really just a case of a high fade for me around the mountain, get it within flop distance. This is a hole. Most of the holes here you'll see very few mistakes being made because it's quite an easy course. So for that reason, the 2nd hole, that shot over the mountain, and potentially the 2nd par 5, which is the next hole, are the key holes here, because if you've got the stats, you can albatross the 2nd par 5. That's often the difference. You'll sometimes see a perfect round being 16 under, so you'll see a couple of 16 unders, maybe a couple of 15s, and everyone else on 14 or 13, so very little difference between the whole group, depending on who's in the group, of course. So regulation, flop into the hole. So next one is the one I was just talking about. This is a par 5, bit of a crosswind. Early on you'll be going for this, which to be honest, early on I didn't even realise that wasn't rough. It looks like an unusual texture, that surface, so I always assumed it was rough, and I was playing for years just over to the right, and everyone suddenly said, or people I knew said, why are you going over there? You can go for this island, which does give you a much easier approach in. However, I can go right after the green now. Only thing to consider is too hard and you can go off the back. The pin's pretty central, so I don't want to leave it too short, and it's quite easy because it is quite a steep incline up to the green. It's quite easy to get caught up in the rough and just trickle onto the green and leave quite a tricky putt. but it's a nice thing to be worried about rather than trying to land it on that island and play a backspin into the green, which you're doing early on until you get the stats. So you'll see I should just catch the front of the rough there. It's actually just landed on the fringe, I think, so it went a bit further than it would have done. Literally a couple of inches back and I would have been short of the pin there. That's again the kind of margin, the distance you've got to aim for. So sometimes you've just got to make your best guess and deal with what you get dealt after that shot. Fairly standard putt though. Not many of the greens at Interlaken are tricky. You'll only be missing putts if you leave really long putts generally, if you're using guides anyway. So there's a regulation albatross. Again, depending on your group you get, you might see nobody gets an albatross. You might see 3 or 4 people do. It's all down to the luck of the group you get dealt in your World Championship game. This one you used to be able to quite easily just play a straight shot here. I think they might have added another tree. I'm not sure. It looks different than it used to. They did that in an update not so long ago when they brought out the new course. They changed a lot of the old ones. I think it was when they brought out the 6T. So early on you'll be going short where my marker was. What I'm going to do is play a draw. I'm going to draw it round the mountain. It's going to pitch just in front of the green, around about where my marker is actually. It'll be a bit further left because of that wind. This is probably, looking at it, and I think from memory, going to go a little bit left of the pin, so I could have adjusted a bit further to the right. Let's see. Yeah, so it's the rough, which actually the rough there, it goes further out of that rough. I think the rough's on a bit of a downslope, so if I was a bit shorter on the fairway, it would have actually stopped a lot quicker, and would have been at the front of the green. But anyway, no guide needed there. I've hit it really hard, so what I did there was a very slight break. I just aimed for the right hand side of the hole and give it a good belt. Only consideration is a bit too hard, it might roll over, but so this one again drivable. Early on you'll be aiming round here, possibly even further back than that. There's a big slope right to left. The slope continues onto the green, so when this pitches, I'm aiming to pitch it just in front of the green, and you'll see it does kick off to the left quite a bit. So it is possible, if you don't get your distance right, to end up a bit short because it'll jump further left than you thought it would, and then hence not kick on as much. So if we have a look at this, you'll see that kick over to the left, but I got my distance just about right. Quite tricky to control, and it's always a good result to get within 5.4 yards there. But the putt itself, there should be no problem with that. Where you've left it, or where I've left it, is similar to the last one. Just give it a good hard smack at the hole, really. So the next one's a par 3. This is, again, it's unusual to see many people not birdie this one, so it's not too tricky. The only consideration again is the contours, and this is another one where you leave the ball. You don't want to be leaving it short of the green here because there's a big slope. It's right to left, so if you leave it short and right, you can have really quite a nasty downhill putt. The ball, you'll see when it lands, will roll off fairly sharply to the left. So together with a right to left wind, I'm going to go a lot further right than I normally would do, and you should probably still see this still finishes left of the pin. I've gone just under a full 7 iron for my stats. So it's going to roll away. If you're playing kind of a 3-4 iron, it's going to roll on a lot more than this, so you'd need to consider that. Obviously 7 iron more lofted, you'll see it stops fairly quickly, but it does roll away. And from the next shot's point of view, from where I've left that, that's pretty much ideal because it's an uphill putt. There's no break on it at all. But when you see holes with that much slope, it's quite a heavy uphill putt. If you think about it, if you're on the other side of the hole and you were 7-8 yards away, that would have been quite a tricky one with a bit of break. This one, again, I think they've moved a tree. They used to be able to draw it, so sometimes if you had a right to left wind, not draw it, sorry, you'd hit it straight. Various areas you can aim for. If you haven't got the stats, keep away from that fairway on the right. It's not nice, it'll kick it off. You can't hold it, I don't think. Anyway, I'm going to play a fade. You used to be able to play a straight shot to the right of a tree and the wind would bring it in, but I think they've moved the tree. Yeah, that tree there to our right. So this is all about the distance. Ideally, you'd want to bounce off the fairway and just clip the front of the green to take a little bit of pace off. It's obviously a very, very small target to aim for. You'll see what I mean, because it's basically the second bounce you'd be looking to clip. The first bounce is always going to be in front of the bunker. So we get the first bounce there, and then a little bit too hard, so it'll roll quite a way past. Not too bad. The putt I get next is not going to be too tricky. It's an uphill one, which again is what I always try to go for. A little bit of right to left break on it, but nothing really to worry about. So I'm going to pop that one in. So we're 4 videos down. I counted 38, I think, so only 34 to go to have the full set of the World Championship. I'll get it done in a few weeks, I would imagine, so bear with me. And you should see them. If you subscribe, you'll see them pop up as soon as they're uploaded. So keep your eyes open if they're useful to you. But thanks for watching this time. More to come soon.